Yes, yes, indeed. Well, thank you again for taking the time to do this. I do really appreciate it. What's kind of keeping you busy at the moment? As things kind of just settle down and are you relaxing, enjoying the post-album release?
Yeah, but the European tour will start in August, so we have to get ourselves prepared for that right now.
So it's just that, basically nailing the set, performing, practicing, getting all that in order.
Yes. Yeah, and actually we've already started working on the new album due out in next year. So we are going through the pre-production process right now. So we are pretty much busy right now, actually.
Do you feel, do you need to be busy like that? I mean, because it seems like it's a constant, something must always be going on.
Well, it depends. Sometimes I prefer to be very, very busy, but I'm getting older. I'm already
Mhm.
55, so sometimes I prefer to be relaxing, doing nothing. So it depends.
What does a day like that look like? An average day where you need to not do anything music, you do just need to step back and take time for yourself. What does that look like?
Well, I usually watch some movies and read books, sometimes to get some inspiration, but I prefer to be passive, rather than creating something. I prefer to watch some classic movies or classic
Hmm.
TV series and yeah, that kind of stuff.
Do you find it easy to switch your mind off though?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Hmm. Lucky you. It's a very difficult thing, particularly from a creative perspective, when everything in theory can inspire you in some ways. Does that happen to you where you plan to switch off, so to speak, and something you're watching doing just sparks and suddenly you need to go create?
well, it just depends on my mood.
Hmm.
Sometimes I just can't, just sit down and doing nothing. But sometimes I don't feel like doing anything. So, you know, it's I don't think it's a good idea to create something when you are not feeling like that.
Hmm.
So I just try to be spontaneous as much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Well, congratulations on reaching 35 years of Sigh, of course. What a momentous
Mm.
thing that is. What does 35 years of Sigh mean to you?
Well, just time flies because I never thought, we would keep playing for as long as 35 years when we started the band around, in the 90s. Because I never had a plan to be in the band when I was over 30
Hmm.
because, in the beginning of the 90s, everyone was in their 20s, like, and even the Kronos from Venom, Tamaraya from Slayer, everyone was, in their 20s, and some of them were even teenagers. So it's very, very hard to imagine that you would be in a band, still in the extreme metal band when you were 30. So I never thought I would carry on this long. So it's a bit scary. You know.
Um, but of course, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course, I understand that, but it's also obviously an incredible milestone to reach because any band, particularly still going in the modern times where music has changed so much, is
Yeah.
testament to what you've wanted to do and how you've got here. But your vision for Psy 35 years ago, do you feel the Psy today reflects that?
Yeah, because I think the basic visions has stayed the same. Because even from the very beginning, what I wanted to do was to mix the ugliness of extreme metal and beauty of like classical music or movie soundtracks. And what we're doing today is still not far from that. Now we taking a lot of, Japanese traditional music and some other stuff too. But well, because our albums sound quite different from each other, but we have something common, in all of the albums, and that kind of thing has stayed the same for 35 years, I guess.
Mm. That vein that runs through everything, it's there, it pulsates all through the albums, regardless of the differences between each release. It's clear,
Yeah,
particularly if you're a fan.
yeah, there are some superficial differences, but in the end, it's me. So I can't change myself that much.
No, of course. But even
Mm,
of course, you develop as an artist. You know, over the years and over time, and what you learn, you're
yeah.
changing, you're evolving.
Mm. Yeah, of course, I grew up as an artist. I know as a player too, as a person too. So because my view on life, music have changed a lot. That's true. Yeah,
Mm.
sometimes I some of the lyrics I wrote when I was younger were very very naive. But yeah, that's
But of
a growing up thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's inevitable, isn't it? Who you are now, when you would look back perhaps at things you did when you were a teenager, you might have those moments of not regret, I don't know, but just different time, different feelings.
mm. Yeah, because I grew up as a musician, and of course, the technology itself has evolved in this 35 years ago. So we recorded Scorn Defeat, our first album in 1992 or three, because everything was so different. Because we still use the analog tapes, and we didn't have. Now you can do almost everything on your PC in your bedroom, but things were quite different back then. So yeah,
Um,
but yeah,
those advancements, I mean, those advancements in technology, obviously hugely beneficial in many, many ways. Have
yeah.
you found yourself comfortable over the last couple of years, really adopting change in that manner?
Yeah, I think I'm 55, but I think I still keep up with the technology. But now AI is coming in. I'm not sure if I can keep, you know,
Hmm.
keep up with the AI thing from now on. I'm getting older and technology will evolve even, faster. So I'm not sure if I'm not confident if I can keep up with it from now on. But I still, even t today, I think I can still keep up with it in some
Well, of
way.
course,
Yeah.
the AI side of things is, that I mean, it's a controversial subject in
Yeah.
itself. But obviously, you've been able to utilize technological advancements to get where we are right now. Because, of course,
Mm.
Hangman's Him, such an incredible record, and we have to kind of start talking about it with a little more reflection about this album specifically. So, I'd like if you would talk to me about the creative journey you went on to make that album reality, and why you sought to push yourself in such a unique way at the time.
You mean the original one?
The original one, yeah.
Original one? Yeah, because I, Hangman's Hymn was a very, very different album compared to the previous albums because Side's albums were always very, very varied. They got everything from heavy metal to jazz to classical to techno. But Hangman's Hymn was the first album where I limited the the, how should I say, maybe recipe or elements I used. Used only thrash metal and classical music and nothing else. So yeah, it's in that sense that was a very, very different album, especially considering that the previous album was Gallows Gallery. It's and I can say Hangman's Hymn was kind of a backlash against Gallows Gallery because Gallows Gallery was supposed to be out on Century Media, but they didn't like it at all, and they dropped us. So, you know, so I just wanted to make something a little bit more straight after the failure. So, yeah, and I always wanted to make an album like Rain in Blood by Slayer or Power and Pain by Whiplash. Only the fast songs from the very beginning to the end of the album. No variety at all. Just a furious fast songs. I wanted to make it, but as I said, variety was kind of an identity for Psy, so I was not sure how to make it happen without losing our identity. But Hangman's Hymn was it included 10 songs, but also all the songs were connected musically and lyrically both. So you can take it as a just one long song that lasts 40 minutes.
Hmm.
So it's like an opera in classical music. So I used that to justify the mono, the for being monotonous for Psy album. So it is a very very straight album, but at the same time it is very very complicated and you know well crafted album too, I guess.
Yeah, layered is the word I like to use to describe it. Were you surprised by the reaction to it at the time? And do you think fans understood it more as time went by?
Well, I think it depends because here in Japan, somehow Hangman's Hymn is the most popular style album. So they prefer Hangman's Hymn to Imaginary, Sonicscape, or Scorn Defeat. But I don't know, maybe in the US or in Europe,
Mm.
probably people prefer Sonicscape or Hell Horror Hell, more adventurous music. Mm, but I'm not sure.
Mm. It is an intriguing discussion because you talk to sci fans and you'll get different answers from pretty much everybody. But there is this modicum of respect that exists for the album, even if necessarily someone didn't like it at the time. Over
Mm.
time, they've grown to respect it even more. So I have to ask you then, of all of Psy's releases, why did you choose Hangman's Hymn to revisit and re-release?
Because I think, because I know re-recording albums can be the double-edged sword.
Mm,
So, it, of course, Score and Defeat has some flaws. The production is poor. The same for Hell or Hell, and same for Imaginary Soundscape. But if we would re-record those albums, I'm quite sure only the magic would disappear. Even if
mm,
we would do it with a today's decent production, better production, and better, musicians, it it would just lose the magic the album had. But I thought, Hangman's Hymn was a big exception because I always thought Hangman's Hymn was one of my best compositions, but that didn't mean Hangman Him was my personal fave album by Psy because the production is poor, drumming is too monotonous, guitar playing is too sloppy. So I just always wanted to re-record it with a decent production and with decent musicians. And I was quite sure if we would make it, it would sound much better than the original. But of course, I was expecting a backlash from the fan who loved the original because it sounds so different and the drumming are so far from the original. So if you love the original more, the more you could hate the new one.
mm.
But yeah, but I understand them.
Yeah, you get that, but also, I mean, if that's the case, it's very important to remember this doesn't replace the original. Both exist, and you can still enjoy the original as much as the new. It doesn't replace it.
Yeah, that's true. I think the new one is just re it's not just a re-recording of the old Hangman Save. You can listen to it as a brand new album
Mm.
because it sounds so different. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's actually a great for a person who perhaps somehow has never heard a Psy record in
Mm.
35 years. It's a great starting point to a degree, and experience
Yeah,
as a point.
probably that's true. There are people who have never heard her music may love the re-recorded version than the original Hangman lovers.
Mm.
I think so. Yeah.
Were you conscious, though, of keeping this re-recording, keeping the vision of this re-recording aligned with the original vision for the album? Because you must have been tempted at times to change things here and there.
Yeah, but as I said, Hangman's Hymn, I think it's one of the my best compositions. So I
Hmm.
didn't have any intention to change the structure of the songs or melodies because I think those songs were completed as they were. But I didn't like some of the orchestrations and arrangements, so I changed some bits and pieces.
Mm.
And of course, I use real trumpet and violin and trombone to make it sound more vivid this time. So I had to change some arrangement, but basically, I kept the songs structures and melodies and riffs as they were.
Why change something that was perfect, or was close to as perfect originally, right?
Yeah.
How did it feel mentally? How did it feel to return to that specific era of Psy, though?
Well, it was very refreshing because I didn't have any, actually, at first, I didn't have any plan to go back to that symphonic direction. I thought, that that direction was over for Psy. But it was very, very refreshing to get familiar with today's technology again. So now I used some sampler to generate those symphonic sound in 2007, but
Hmm.
now everything is sounds much, much better with the state of the art VST, software synthesizer. I'm quite surprised. They sound very, very real and vivid. So it was very, good learning. It was a good learning for me to get familiar with today's technology.
Ah, so even still, even this long into your career, that you learned some new things just doing this.
Yes. Yeah, because one time I talked to the Borgil guys. They told me they don't need the real orchestra anymore because the software sounds as great as orchestra. So now I see what they meant.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What about learning anything about yourself, about what who you are and what you're capable of at this stage? Coming back to a record like this, did you feel like you learned anything about yourself?
Well, not much, but after that, I started playing flute around I think 2015 or 16. So
Hmm.
of course I used my own flute, so that was a good thing that I can play the real orchestra, yeah, instrument myself.
Incredible. Always great to learn new skills, something like that. It's not an
Yeah,
easy instrument either.
yeah, right.
Talking of which, then, there must have been moments where, even doing a re-recording of music that you previously written, where you were challenged, where you found yourself challenged recreating this record. Were there any notable moments where you really, really found yourself pushed?
Well, probably the when I first heard the drumming by Mike Heller. So I just asked him to play, as he liked. So I didn't give any instruction. I just left everything up to him. And he sent the first track, Introitus. And because and his drumming was furious and so different from the original. So at first I was not sure if I, if we had to go with the direction which Mike showed, or if I had to ask him to play more like the original. That was a turning point. But
Hmm.
just recreating the original album with good production and good playing wouldn't be as interesting. So I just asked him to keep playing as he liked. That was the moment I had to think what to do. But that was the only point that I had to push myself.
How did you come to that decision, though? Was it a matter of just giving it lots of thought and then just going, that's it, or flipping a coin? What did you do?
Well, I just kept listening to the track he sent because at first you just listen to the gap between the actual track and your expectation. So you have to get used to the actual track to see the well, I don't know what was it. So I just need some time to get myself to get used to what I heard. So yeah.
Uh, did you find yourself at any stage, and particularly even talking about that specific track, protective of the original recording, so to speak? Because of course, it exists, it's been out there for a while, you wrote it back then. So like there might be almost like a I don't want to mess with it too much protection feeling.
Yeah, at first I thought I just had some slight feeling like that because I partly I thought the thrash beat might have to be kept, but I prefer to be adventurous in the end.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What about the recording process? What were some of the highlights of that? And was that mostly an enjoyable experience?
Well, it's a typical internet file exchange recording of today. So just Mike recorded everything in his recording studio and sent us the files. Then I and the guitarist Nozomu
Mhm.
laid everything on top of it. So it was nothing exciting. It's a typical chore of today.
But nothing too complex, nothing went, it was all smooth, it ran smoothly.
Yeah, kind of. Sometimes his drumming was too fast, so it wasn't easy to keep up with the rhythm when I recorded the vocals. It was kind of challenging, but other than that, it was smooth.
Speaking of that, though, speaking of the vocals, then was that a fun challenge? As difficult as it might have been, there must have been some joy in having to push yourself.
Yes, because one of my complaints about original Hangman's Hymn was my vocal. It was, you know, monotonous and
Mm.
not expressive enough. And I have been taking the vocal lessons for the past 10 years, and now I'm 55, but I think I still have a very, very strong voice, probably stronger than 17 years ago. So I wanted to make it more varied and expressive than the original Hangman's Hymn's vocals. So it was fun to try a lot of different vocals for the new version.
Yeah, when you look at reviews and thoughts and what people are saying online, there's a varied response to it. Most people seem to absolutely love it, but one of the highlights that people often mention is the fact that your vocals are so unique on this, and they do sound incredible.
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that.
When you look at the overall process, then the creation of this re-recording, this re-release, this new album, what was particularly creatively fulfilling for you in the end?
Well, because this was one of my unfinished business, because I really wanted to, you know, recreate my best composition with the best production and best musician. So
Mm.
I just, finally made my unfinished business finished. So that's how I feel right now.
Drawing a line under it, incredible. Able to move forward. Which I mean, what do you say to fans who are basically desperate for the next Psy album, the follow-up to Shiki?
As I said, now we're going through the pre-production process, and I could say it's a follow-up to Siki for sure. It has nothing to do with him anymore. So it's uh, w- it's gonna be pretty close to Siki's very heavy, dark, and
Mm.
very Japanese with a lot of Japanese traditional instruments. But I'm quite sure it's gonna be a big step up from Siki to.
Exciting stuff next year at some point. Yeah, can't wait. Finally, then, I guess we'll end with this. What does it mean for you to have completed this immense task?
What do you mean?
What does it mean for you to have completed this immense task, this Hangman's Hymn re-release, re-recording? You've finished it, as you say, you've drawn a line under it, you've exercised that demon, so to speak. Describe that feeling just to be able to walk away from it now.
Well, I think this is the real end of the symphonic direction of Psy. So I don't think I will never ever make an album like that because this is the highest form of the symphonic style by Psy. So I don't think I can top it in any way in the future. So this is the end, and this is the goal of the direction.
Goal achieved. That is simply fabulous to hear, and I cannot wait to see what comes next. It's always exciting to be talking about the future as much as the past. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, so thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It does help us out. You can find us at gbhbl.com and across all social media platforms. And if you really want to give us a bit of extra support, please consider buying us a cup of coffee over on our coffee page. Thank you.